כי מאז שזה נגמר אני לא מרגיש יותר כלום. ציירת לי קו ישר ולצלחת קצת עקום, זרוק באיזה בר עדיין מנסה לקום. את כל הזמן אמרת לי שאני ממש אטום. ממתי את מחוברת ב3 לפנות בוקר? ולמה אני זה שעדיין מאוהב? נמאס לי להמר על החיים שלי כמו פוקר. את היית זוג אס שמנצח כל מצב.
אז איך הלב שלך קפא לי כמו סחנה? מתי השמש כבר תצא מבין העננים? אני נשארתי פה תקוע בגן יבנה, כותב שירים עוד בדירה של ההורים. שמש מתחבאת שם בענן, אני רוצה לטעום קצת מהטעם הישן. מתגעגע לימים עשני סימן, איפה התקופות שהיינו? מטיילים יש קשת בענן, החברות שלך חצו אותי רחוק מכאן. עכשיו בחוץ שלכת את הולכת לי מכאן, איפה התקופות שהיינו?
תגידי זוכרת? את אמרת לי מילים, את שברת הכלים וברחת להורים, את זוכרת? לא ניסית להשלים, רק רצית להבין איך ממני יוצאים, את אומרת הייתי כמו גבר, עשית לי בית ספר, אמרת לי שכדאי לנו לצאת להפסקה.
אז איך הלב שלך קפא לי כמו סחנה? מתי השמש כבר תצא מבין העננים? אני נשארתי פה תקוע בגן יבנה, כותב שירים היום שכולם מכירים. שמש מתחבאת שם בענן, אני רוצה לטעום קצת מהטעם הישן. מתגעגע לימים עשני סימן, איפה התקופות שהיינו? מטיילים יש קשת בענן, החברות שלך חצו אותי רחוק מכאן. עכשיו בחוץ שלכת את הולכת לי מכאן, איפה התקופות שהיינו?
שמש מתחבאת שם בענן, אני רוצה לטעום קצת מהטעם הישן. מתגעגע לימים אז תני סימן,
איפה התקופות שהיינו? מטיילים יש קשת בענן, החברות שלך חצו אותי רחוק מכאן. מתגעגע לימים שאת עוד כאן, איפה התקופות שהיינו?
הצל שלי ואני יצאנו לדרך, השמש עמדה כך בערך, פעם אני מוביל ופעם תן על השביל. עננים התכנסו בשמיים, התחילו לרדת טיפות מים, צילי התכנס בתוכי, המשכתי לבדי בדרכי. הרוח טלטל, הפחד טפטף וחלחל, צילי בתוכי מרעיד, מפחיד יותר מתמיד. הוא שואל לאן אתה לוקח, אני משיב לאן אתה בורח. למה תמיד קירות מוגנים, למה צל כשהאור בפנים? שתמיד לפתוח את דלתות הבלבול, את הילד שמציץ לרחוב המנעול. בוא נעבור את הגבול אל החופש שהיה כבול, ורק מנגינות מזכירות שבחוץ אפשר להיות משוחרר מכל פחד, רק שהצל ואני ביחד. בוא נעוף רחוק, אתה תהיה לי כנפיים, אל חיבור דמיוני שהיה עד עכשיו בלתי אפשרי. בוא נקפוץ תמיד לעוף אל גשר הצל והגוף, דע להמשיך לברוח מה שתמיד רצינו לשכוח. עוף רחוק, אתה תהיה לי כנפיים, אל חיבור דמיוני שהיה עד עכשיו בלתי אפשרי.
וכשהשמש נמחקת בשמיים, והלב מטפטף לי דרך העיניים החומות, אז אני זוכר שיש ידיים שרוצות אותי קרוב. אני יודע שזכיתי לאהוב. וכשהרוח אחרי הצהריים מפזרת ענפים קטנים, ובינתיים זה נעים, אז אני זוכר שיש עיניים שרואות אותי קרוב, ואני יודע שזכיתי לאהוב. אני יודע שזכיתי לאהוב.
Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom. Welcome to our Friday evening Erev Shabbat for this 4th of June, the Shabbat where we honor our LGBTQ plus community with Pride Shabbat. I just gave a little bit of musical intro to that. I'll just tell you who we heard. We heard a song called Keshet Be'anan, Rainbow, by a new song by a group called Benzini with Dudo Buzgalo helping with the rap there. We heard Yehuda Poliker's My Shadow and I, and the last song was a beautiful song from Ivri Leader called Zaniti La'ahava. I've had the privilege to love. So just a little beautiful introduction there, and just want to say shalom to Rabbi.
Shabbat shalom, everyone. I hope that you are doing well on this Shabbat, and I'm so happy that you're with us to spend a little time reconnecting to yourself, to your community, and to the Holy One. And I'm going to share my Siddur with you in a minute. As Cantor Paul mentioned before, this is Pride Month, and this is our LGBTQ Pride Shabbat, and we will have somebody who's sharing a Devar Torah today, a guest teacher, and a few congregants who are going to lead some readings during the service this evening. So we're going to start tonight with Psalm 96, which is singing a new song, Shiru Ladonai Shir Chadash, sing a new song to God.
So I realized as I was putting the mini playlist together for the few minutes before we actually started the service that I was a little gender biased, so I thought I would choose to open tonight a song that was obviously, as Rabbi said, adapted from the lyrics of Psalm 96, but given a melody that has become somewhat iconic, and it was created by an individual who's really been a pioneer in advancing LGBTQ rights and visibility in the Jewish community, and that's Julie Silver. So here's a little Shir Chadash, sing a new song. Shiru Ladonai kol haaretz, Shiru Ladonai shir chadash. Sing unto God, all the earth, a new song. I will sing unto God a new song. Sing unto God, and we'll all sing along. All the earth a new song unto God. Shiru Ladonai kol haaretz, Shiru Ladonai shir chadash. One more time. Shiru Ladonai kol haaretz, Shiru Ladonai shir chadash. I will sing unto God a new song.
Before we bless our Shabbat lights, I'd like to share a reading with you. On this LGBTQ Pride Shabbat, we welcome the Sabbath into our midst. On this night, we express the love in our hearts for gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, queer people everywhere. We celebrate that we are all created in the divine image. We pray on this Shabbat that all people will be able to escape oppression, and taste the freedom of the promised land. As we bless our Shabbat lights, let their glow light our way from the closets that still hold too many in darkness. Let the Shekhinah lead us with a pillar of smoke by day and a pillar of fire by night through any wilderness toward equality. May these Sabbath candles inspire each of us to wholeness and holiness.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kirishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner Shel Shabbat.
As we do each Shabbat, we take a few moments before Lecha Dodi to reflect on the week, to spend a little time on each day, going back to last Shabbat, reflecting on its challenges and on its blessings. And then we will come back. I'll have some special instructions, but we'll come back together and continue to greet the Shabbat with Lecha Dodi. So let's take a few moments in quiet reflection. We're going to have a little bit different. We always sing verses 1 to 5 and 9. Today we're going to do 1 to 7 and 9 with 7 talking about the rejoicing of the heart. And so we will begin with Lecha Dodi, top of page 20.
And the melody is going to be a new one for us, at least for Lecha Dodi, but I think it might be familiar to a lot of you. And as Rabbi mentioned, we're changing the Chatan v'Kala, the bridegroom and bride of verse number 7 to Lev be'ahava. As your God, that God rejoices in you as the heart rejoices in love. But I think you know this tune. Open up a little here. We'll do it as a nigun first, so you can get used to it. Lie, 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 lie. Lecha Dodi Likrat Kala B'nei Shabbat Nikavela Lecha Dodi Likrat Kala B'nei Shabbat Nikavela Shamor v'Zachor B'dibor Echad Ishmianu El Ham Yuchad Adonai Echad Ushmo
אחד לשם ולתפארת ולתחילה. לך דודי לקראת כלה בני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה בני שבת נקבלה. לקראת שבת לכו ונלכה כי היא מקור הברכה. בראש מקדם נסוכה סוף מעשה ומחשבת תחילה. לך דודי לקראת כלה בני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה בני שבת נקבלה. והיו למשייך שעושייך ורקחו כל מבלייך. יסיס עלייך אלוהייך כמשוש לב באהבה. לך דודי לקראת כלה בני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה בני שבת נקבלה. בואי ושלום עטרת בעלה גם בשמחה וצהלה. תוך אמוני עם סגולה. בואי חלה בואי חלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה בני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה בני שבת נקבלה.
We continue with Chatzi Kaddish. If you have a book at home, we're on page 26.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה ועלמא יברח חירותי וימליך מלכותי וחייכון וביום אחד ובחיי דכל בית ישראל. בגלה בגלה ובזמן קריב ויאמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מברך לעולם ולעולמי עלמיה. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה בריחו לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דאמירן בעלמא ויאמרו
We continue with Baruch Hu, our call to prayer. We rise in body or in spirit.
Oh, am I awake? Am I aware? Are you listening, God, to our prayers? Can you hear our voice? Do you really understand? Oh, are we awake? Are we aware? Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed, le'olam va'ed. Yadadai dai dai, 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 yadadai dai dai.
Continue with the last three lines in the Hebrew.
El Chai v'Kayam, Tamid Yimlach Aleinu le'olam va'ed. Baruch Ata Adonai HaMariv HaRavim.
We continue with Shema Yisrael, connecting ourselves to the oneness that connects everything and everything to the Holy One.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. 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 Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto le'olam va'ed. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto le'olam va'ed. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Love your God with every heartbeat, with every breath, with every conscious act. Keep in mind the words I command you today. Teach them to your children. Talk about them at work, whether you are tired or you are rested. Let them guide the work of your hands. Keep them in the forefront of your vision. Do not leave them at the doorway of your house or outside your gate. They are reminders to do all of my mitzvot so that you can be holy for God. I am Adonai, your God. I led you out of Egypt to become your God. I am Adonai, your God. We continue with Leman Tizkeru.
Leman tizkeru va'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'item kedoshim le'Elohechem. Ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim liot lachem le'Elohim. Ani Adonai Elohechem, Adonai Elohechem emet.
Emet. I'd like to invite Kate and Noah Godden to share a reading. Hi, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
And go for it.
Amika Mocha for Friday nights. Our people came out of Egypt, a mixed multitude, the spray of dividing waters, sparkling diamonds all around them. We stood together at Sinai, all of us, future, present, past, amid the rumble of thunder and the crack of bright lightning, to enter into covenant with the one who loves us, in whose shining image we are all created over and over again. We have wandered bleak landscapes, built flimsy tents of skin and then houses of stone. We have planted orchards and vineyards, seen 2 temples rise, and then go down in the surging flames, forcing us into exile. We have loved and lost, grieved and danced, transgressed and celebrated, hidden, suffered, thrived.
And we together here this day in the community of our people, a mixed multitude, and we sing out, Hear, O Israel, we stand together, all of us, descendants of the first human created on the 6th day, and of our myriad parents, down through the generations, too numerous to name. We stand together, link arms, and pray. Blessed are you, God of the universe, who sanctifies us with the commandment to love ourselves and one another in all our varied ways, and blesses us with a diamond bright radiance that still ripples down from your first spoken words of creation.
Thank you so much. And we're going to continue with Micha Mocha.
מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, נורא תהילות עושה פלא. מלכותך ראו בניך, בוקעם לפני משה ומרים. זה אלי אנו, ואמרו, מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, נורא תהילות עושה פלא. נורא תהילות עושה פלא. נורא תהילות עושה פלא. ונאמר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו. ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל.
Give us a place to rest, Adonai our God. Bring us into shelter in the long, soft evening shadows of your truth. For with you are true protection and safety, and in your presence are acceptance and gentle love. Watch over us as we go forth, prepare for us as we return. Spread over us your shelter of peace over all we love, over our Jerusalem and yours.
Baruch atah Adonai, haporei sukat shalom aleinu, sukat shalom aleinu, ve'al kol amo Yisrael, ve'al Yerushalayim.
We give thanks for Shabbat and join in Vishamru.
Veshamru b'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat, Lasod et HaShabbat, Midorotam ביני ובין בני ישראל, אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת, לדור אותם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני, עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת, לדור אותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת, לדור אותם ברית עולם.
As we turn to our Amidah, we will chant the opening line here, and then we're going to have a reading shared by Stephanie Kuba, and then we'll continue with our Avot Ve'imaho prayer. We rise in body or in spirit.
Adonai, sefatai tiftach, ufi yagid tehilatecha. Oh Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Yada-dai-dai-dai, 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 yada-dai-dai-dai.
Stephanie, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, Rabbi and Cantor. This is a blessing for my LGBTQ ancestors. You who fought to love. You who prayed to the same God I do. You who insisted on your dignity, even when the world said you had none. You who died of AIDS while fighting for a cure so that people like me might live. You who were shot in a massacre while on the dance floor. You who could not come out and held your secret until your dying day. You who were insulted, shamed, beaten, and brutalized, yet kept walking. You who contributed your fierceness, your originality, your art, and your voice to this world. I walk in your memory. I walk this path, smooth and charted by your sacrifice, towards justice, toward holiness, toward freedom. Baruch atah Adonai Megen Avraham ve'Ezrat Sarah. Blessed are you, Adonai, Sarah's helper, Abraham's shield.
Thank you, Stephanie. We're going to continue now with our Avot Ve'imaho prayer as we think about all of those who have come before.
Yada-dai-dai-dai, 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 dai-dai-dai-dai-dai. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avoteinu v'Imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor V'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע, מוריד הטל, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומי דומה לך, מלך ממיד ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיי הכל.
You are holy, your name is holy, and those who are holy praise you every day. Baruch atah Adonai,
Baruch Baruch Shemo,
Ha'el HaKadosh.
Amen.
Please take a few moments for silent prayer for the text of your own heart. And after that, there'll be a musical offering by Dr. Randy Polovoy.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom to everybody. Shabbat Shalom, Rabbi and Cantor. Well, we've already heard one setting of a song involving a rainbow. You're going to hear another one. So the symbol of the rainbow, of course, plays an important part in tonight's service. But it was used in a totally different context back in 1947 with the Broadway debut of the musical Finian's Rainbow. The book and lyrics were written by Yip Harburg, the son of Russian Jewish immigrants, and the music by Burton Lane. The musical has quite a convoluted plot with Irish characters, a leprechaun, black sharecroppers, and a racist white senator. In a nutshell, Finian's Rainbow outlines a particular minority's quest for the American dream. But it also calls attention to the suffering of various ethnicities and communities. In that respect, the message of Finian's Rainbow is timeless. So here is Look to the Rainbow from Finian's Rainbow.
Thank you so much. That was beautiful.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom, everybody. I would like to introduce somebody to you from somebody who's doing work within our congregation. T. Delphine is the co-chair of our DEI committee along with Deborah Norden. Our speaker tonight is a good friend of T's, so I invited T to come on in and say a few words about our DEI work, our diversity, equity, and inclusion work, and also to introduce our teacher for this evening. So, T.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
It's a pleasure to join everybody. Happy Pride, everybody. So it's been a real honor for these last couple of months to work with Deborah Norden and the whole committee doing DEI work. For those who are less familiar, DEI is diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so we're doing a little work to make sure that TBI is as inclusive, welcoming, open, diverse, etc., a place as it can be. And so we talk about issues ranging from gender and sexuality to accessibility for disabilities, neurodiversity, race and ethnicity, you name it. So hopefully the work that we're doing now will bring some positive modifications to TBI. And so as for our speaker tonight, who pre-recorded a Devar Torah for us because she is in Ohio and it's a little late there now. Rabbi Megan Doherty is my best friend, and we go way back to college days. And there's something very full circle about this. So we were counting back the years and realized that this now makes 20 years this year that Megan has been calling me saying, can I run a Devar Torah by you? And it's one of my favorite things is to hear her, explain and parse the Torah. So she's done a really beautiful Devar Torah for us tonight that is connected to this Pride service. So I hope you all enjoy it.
Thanks, T, for introduction and for all that you're doing in our community. Cantor Paul, start the video.
Hi, I am Rabbi Megan Doherty, and it's really exciting for me to be with you all on this Shabbat. I am a college friend of Teresa Delphine's, and it is immensely joyful to me to be speaking at her synagogue on Shabbat. In my day job, I am the director and rabbi at Oberlin College Hillel, and I've spent about the last 10 years working on college campuses. So Shabbat Shalom. And
If you give me a second, I'll try and change that. There's no second microphone, thanks, T. But there is no second microphone, so let me see what else I can do here.
hi, I am Rabbi Megan Doherty, and it's really exciting for me to be with you all on this Shabbat. I am a college friend of Teresa Delphine's, and it is immensely joyful to me to be speaking at her synagogue on Shabbat. In my day job, I am the director and rabbi at Oberlin College Hillel, and I've spent about the last 10 years working on college campuses. So Shabbat Shalom. And tonight I want to bring some Torah and some stories and think about how we tell queer Jewish stories or what's important about them. But I'm going to start in our Parsha because it's there. So Shlach Lecha is this Parsha we're in, lots of rich adventures and giants and grasshoppers and all kinds of things in it. But I want us to focus actually at the end of the parsha, the very, very, very last bit, which might be familiar to some of you because it's the third paragraph of the Shema. So as you know, when we say the Shema, Shema Israel, in our liturgy, it's followed by the Ve'ahavta paragraph, and then two more paragraphs, which some prayer books include olives, some include excerpts. So this paragraph is the last paragraph, and it's the one about being commanded to make tzitzit, to make ritual fringes on the corners of our garments, so that we remember that God is our God, and we remember that we were freed from Egypt, right? Those core pieces of the Jewish story are why we make those ritual fringes on our garments. And it's not just us who are asked or instructed to make those ritual fringes on our garments. We are instructed to tell our children, right, that for all the generations, those ritual fringes will be made on the garments of Jewish people, and we will remember and tell our core story of being freed from Egypt and remembering that God is God. And I feel like, you know, that's a really Jewish thing to do, right? When you grow up in a Jewish household, if you are someone who got to grow up in a Jewish home with Jewish parents or Jewish community members, you absorbed lots of stuff just by virtue of being in a Jewish house, right? Maybe you learned the rhythm of the holiday cycle or the weekly cycle. If you had Shabbat, you know, a different Shabbat dinner every week, or something you weren't allowed to do or on Shabbat or only did on Shabbat, right? You sort of internalize these core pieces of, you know, who Jews are and what Jews do just by virtue of growing up in a Jewish home. And I think that's a beautiful thing. It's something I think about a lot as I'm raising my daughter, how to give her that kind of Judaism without working very hard for it, not going to sit in school. So that too. And I want to read now this small text by Adam Eli, it's from a book he wrote called The New Queer Conscience. And he writes on this very topic: being born into my family meant that Jewish culture, knowledge, and ideology were instilled in me by osmosis. Just by being awake, I was taught to be Jewish. My upbringing, while sometimes complicated and often intense, is something I am grateful for. It made me the person I am today. There's only one problem. I am not only Jewish. I am Jewish and queer. And while my life was overflowing with information about one of my cultures, it was completely devoid of information about the other. And even though queer people have always been here, our history can be hard to access. The reason I didn't know anything about my queer history or identity was because nobody taught it to me. Lessons on Jewish history were everywhere. Lessons on queer history were nowhere. So that, I think, puts it really poignantly. That most people who are queer don't grow up in queer homes, right? You don't get to sort of inherit queer culture and history the way that you get to inherit Jewish culture and history. Sometimes even if your parents are queer, you might not get that. You're more likely to get it, I will say, if your parents are queer. And there is this gap then of like, how do queer people access their history, their story, their core story, right? What does it mean to be a queer person in the world? And particularly in this context, what does it mean to be a queer Jewish person in the world? So a couple of background things I think are important to bring to this, right? So one of them is that queer experience is a part of the human experience. So as long as there have been human beings, there have been queer people who are having queer experiences and queer lives and queer sorrows and queer joy, right? And as long as there have been Jewish people, there have been people, you know, Jewish queers experiencing queer Jewish, you know, lives and sorrows and joys. And what has changed isn't so much that, oh my gosh, all of a sudden there's all these queer Jewish people running around, right? We were not invented when Harvey Milk ran for office. We were not invented, right, at Stonewall. We are, we've always been a part of the Jewish story. And what has changed really is who gets to tell the story, right? Who are the people who get to sort of what stories get added to the narrative, what stories are allowed in, and who gets to tell those stories, and also who has access to public space and the public sphere, both in the wider world and in Judaism. So it's not that like all of a sudden there's all these queer people, but it's that our stories are now more interwoven and able to be seen and read, both in our communities now and also reading back into our Jewish texts and Jewish history. We can lift up where we think we might see queerness. But now we have this question: how do we make sure that those stories are remembered? I'm noticing in my own life working with college students, or my own experience as a person on the internet and on Twitter and just looking around social media, that there are these gaps in the younger generation with the young people. But I feel them in myself as well, right? That there's this sort of ahistorical sense. People don't know their history. People don't know, the origins of the rainbow flag. People don't really know what Stonewall was or is. I mean, those are the big ones. Or they don't know people who matter to queer history. Who was the first lesbian rabbi of a mainstream congregation? Who founded, or where are the gay and lesbian synagogues in North America or the world? What are who were the people telling the stories that became the queer Jewish stories that became part of the American story? And those things just don't get transmitted because you have to go looking for them. You don't get a source book when you come out, although that's a cool idea. I should probably make one up. And so I feel that way. And I also feel that way that it's not just that people don't know the stories, that that leads them to taking what they have for granted, or misunderstanding something. So my example, the one that really struck me is about a year ago, I was in a training. It was like a training for being a LGBTQ safe space as part of a university program that my Hillel was part of. And the trainer was this, I think, a master's student, but very young, very sweet trans person, was really probably in their early 20s. And they were talking about all these different pieces of the queer experience now and what it means. And they made this offhand reference to, oh yes, well now there's same-sex marriage, but really that's just a benefit, or that was really, put into place by rich white gay men. But that's not really the important, that wasn't the most important justice issue that the queer community could be focusing on at that moment. And I will admit that my jaw kind of dropped. Because on the one hand, there were totally critiques of marriage, of marriage being the thing around which activists rallied for the whole time that people were pushing for gay marriage, right? That it was I remember those conversations about, why are we pushing for marriage to be like the straights? Why aren't we, focusing on much more radical, radical notions of, interrupting, the state-sponsored marriage? And, they definitely, I was that person for a while too, I get it. But to say sort of blatantly and offhandedly that really same-sex marriage was really only applicable to rich white straight people, rich white gay men, I said, I had to say, no, actually, people were dying and were legally not connected to their partners. And so the family they were no longer connected with, had control over them, over their medical futures, or could, not have their partners come to funerals. And there were, lesbians who needed their, women with children who needed their female partners to also be legal parents of their children. You're missing a bunch of history to sort of dismiss this thing that I guess is now just part of the background, right? Oh yes, gay marriage, we have gay marriage. So like, why do we, and we can, it's no longer an important piece of our story, like those stories. So that was just the sense of like, wow, like there is this gap missing in this person's sense of history or sense of how we got to be where we are. Or even, talking with my students about, like students who've only ever had lesbian rabbis, right? And like, that it's both like a long time ago and also very recent that rabbis would perform marriages for, 2 women or 2 men, but that queer people were allowed to be rabbis. Like, that's relatively recent history. And it's amazing that you can take it for granted, but also like, I think it's important to have a sense of how we got here, in order that you can continue to make the amazing changes you're making, right? Yes, it's not enough. What we have now is not enough. And like, take a step back and have some perspective. And how do you get the perspective if you don't have the history? So I was having this experience with my students. One of my colleagues, Rabbi Isabel Dekanik at Drexel, was also having this experience with her students. And so we're like, we need to do something to teach this or to open this conversation up. So I consulted with her, and she made us like a winter term course, like an online Zoom course during this crazy pandemic year, which attracted students from all over the country to learn sort of this queer Jewish history, really focusing on contemporary stories and images of like, what do queer Jewish people look like? Where are they? What are they doing? What have they done? And really focusing the last 30 and 40 years. And it went amazingly well. And then she and I collaborated on taking that course and teaching it to a national cohort of Hillel staff just last month. Because young staff and old staff also need these tools and need this information. And the piece of the pieces of this that I want to leave you with, or want to invite as a conversation for your community to have, start with this text from the Talmud. And it's a text from Bava Batra, page 21a, if you want to go looking for it. And the first time I read it, it kind of knocked me over. And I'm going to leave the pronouns and language as they are, like kind of directly from the Hebrew. So it's masculine language, kind of take a, that's how the Talmud's written. And I think it's very easily more generalizable. So in Bava Batra, it says, initially, whoever had a father would have his father teach him Torah. And whoever did not have a father would not learn Torah at all. So there's more, but I'm going to pause there, right? If you didn't have a father, you wouldn't learn Torah, right? If you didn't have someone not just to teach you, but to, be your parent, be your mentor, you had no access to Torah. You had no access to this thing that is the core story of the Jewish people. I was gobsmacked by that idea. And I think so were the rabbis, because it continues. When the sages saw that not everyone was capable of teaching their children and Torah study was declining, they instituted an ordinance that teachers of children should be established in Jerusalem. So the sages were like, it's not actually okay that we leave this sort of up to random chance, if you're an orphan or not, whether you learn Torah and have access to the richness of Jewish text and the Jewish world and the Jewish story. So every child deserves to be taught, right? So we're going to have teachers whose job it is to help children access the Torah. So if we think about Torah as the core story, the identity shaping story of the Jewish people, then I think it invites, and that there need to be teachers of it, and I think that invites us to think about what are the core stories? What is the core story? What are the core stories of queer people or queer Jews? And maybe there's probably multiple, but what are they? And how do we find and support and create for ourselves, right, the teachers and the mentors who can share them with us and help us cultivate those identities within ourselves? What do we need? What do each of us need, whether we're queer or straight, old or young? What do we need from the people in our lives who are going to serve us as mentors and teachers and supporters and nurturers, right? And how do we find those people? If those people aren't our parents, if we have straight parents and we're queer, how do we find our queer elders and mentors? If we're straight people and we want to learn more, like how do we find our queer? How do we or you find your queer elders and mentors, right? How do we create that for ourselves? And then how do we become that? How do we queer people become that for the next generation, right? How do we make sure that the queer stories are transmitted and that our stories are transmitted, right, to the next, so they're not lost, or so that you don't have to go find them in the back of dusty libraries or in archival newspapers. So my invitation, my dog is very concerned with this too. So my invitation is that if you have a story, if you are a queer Jew sitting in this community right now and you have a story, share it. Share your story of, what happened, where were you when you found out that same-sex marriage was legal? Did you live through AIDS? Did you know people who died whose stories need to be shared? Do you have your own story of being partnered before it was legal, parenting with all of the paperwork before you could just easily adopt? Right? What are your stories of joy, right? What celebrations did you have? What ceremonies? What parties, right? What are your stories of queer joy that you want to make sure are passed down? And if you're not queer, right? Or even if you are, if you're young, like ask, and people who are older than you or a different generation, ask them for their stories, right? Find out ways, tell me about this. Hey, you were alive at this time. What was it like? Hey, you mentioned that you went on this trip to this place that was such a landmark of queer experience. Tell me about it. I want to know, right? So it's both, I invite us all to become more open and generous with our own stories, and also more curious and more inviting about the stories of others, so that no queer Jewish person doesn't, is left in this place of not learning queer Torah at all, but that we are all become teachers of children, teachers of the next generation, and we all become learners and listeners to the stories of others. Shabbat Shalom. Have a wonderful, wonderful Pride Month. It's been an honor.
So I want to say Toda Rabah to Rabbi Megan Doherty for joining us, for sending her message, for encouraging us to tell our stories and to listen to the stories of others as we work as we do our DEI work and work both with LGBTQ stories and with the stories of all the diversity that make up our congregation. How do we elevate those stories and have them heard? And how do we integrate those stories into the master story of our congregation and the story of our people? So thank you again to Rabbi Doherty and also to T for bringing her to us. So we're going to turn now to, I'm going to share the Siddur with you again, and we're going to turn to hold on a second, to Misha Berach, but I have to do something here. And our thoughts are with all of those in our lives and in our community in need of healing, of body, of mind, or of spirit. Cantor, I don't have sound from you.
O Holy One, who blessed our mothers, who blessed our fathers from ancient days, bless and heal those in our hearts, and hear our prayer as we say their names. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Yimalei Rachamim Aleihem, V'Hachzikam U'Rape Otam, V'Yishlach Lahem Refuah Shlema, Refuat HaNefesh, Refuat HaGuf, B'toch Sha'ar Cholei Yisrael. Oh, bless and heal those in our hearts, and hear our prayer as we say their names.
We ask for blessings upon Rebecca Gilman, Bela Pasternak, Hannah Fields Austin, Sue Tobak, Paula Steinbach, Rosalind Lefkowitz, Helen Weinfeld, Gabrielle Silton, Pam Koliakoff, Connie Shapiro, Kathy Blumenfeld, Gloria Austin, Caitlin Antrim, Judith Bosworth, Kathy Brewster, Stephanie Holland, Jennifer Rudin, Susan Brewer, Ed Ansell, Marion Schneiders, Kimberly Zimmerman, Lori Snyder, Brad Holland, Isley Holland, Mike Klein, Beatrice Caden, Meg Silton, Henry Gerard, Kirby Perkins, Brenda Found Gerard, Serena Postal, Bobby Kay, Marilyn Freeman, Robert Strober, Ava Bespris, Marilyn Lubarsky, Joe Kummerman, Shar Alpert, Carol Sage, Ira Quatcher, Ellery Einstein, Ken Mitchell, Patricia Kramer, Joey Kubel, Ann Hudson, Lois Goodman, Lavini Feldman, and all of those who we carry in our hearts.
HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Yimalei Rachamim Aleihem. Oh, bless and heal those in our hearts, and hear our prayer as we say their names.
I'd like to invite Jack Warshaw to share some announcements with all of you. Shabbat Shalom, Jack.
Shabbat Shalom. On behalf of the Board of Trustees of Temple Beth Israel, would like to wish a very warm Shabbat Shalom to all who are joining us this evening. Thank you again to Rabbi Jonathan Kupetz, Cantor Paul Bush, Dr. Randy Polivoy, and a wonderful, wonderful Devar Torah from Megan Doherty, Rabbi Megan Doherty. Please refer to the email blast on Thursdays, the Temple Beth Israel update for all of the events that are going on in the next week, or to the website, tbipomona.org. Specifically, the two items that I would like to mention this evening would be next Friday evening Shabbat service will be in person on the Great Lawn. We were there for the last one where it was a little cool, but it was a wonderful, wonderful evening, and look forward to seeing everyone who can make it there. There's no pre-registration required. Please remember the masking and social distance will be maintained. And the service will also still be available on the Facebook page and on YouTube. And then next Sunday, June 13th, will be the Route 66 East Valley Car Show at the Temple. Free for everyone to attend. There'll be food, entertainment, and all of the wonderful cars that are part of it here. It should be a wonderful, wonderful day. I'll be there for the whole day and look forward to seeing all of you there. Again, Shabbat Shalom.
Sorry, I was on mute. Thank you, Jack. Shabbat Shalom to you and to Amy as well. Take care. All right, I'm going to share my book with you again. I say a lot of things twice on Zoom. The first time on mute, and the second time unmuted. All right, here we go. We stand in body or in spirit for Aleinu L'Shabeach 282.
Aleinu l'shabech l'adon hakol, לתת גדולה ליוצא בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הרצון, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד.
Our thoughts turn to those who have died, who have left an imprint on our lives. First, a special prayer of remembrance for our LGBTQ siblings. Oh God, remember today those of our LGBTQ community who were martyred in years past, those murdered by fanatics in the Middle Ages, those who perished in the Holocaust, those struck down in our own cities in our own time. Remember also those who took their own lives driven by despair in a world that hated them because of their love or gender. And in mercy, remember those who lived lives of loneliness, repressing their true natures and refraining from sharing their love with one another. Oh God, remember the sacrifices of those who have come before and help us to bring an end to hate and oppression of every kind. We remember the recent deaths in our community of Excel Hunter, father of Courtney, Medina, father of Ari, ex-husband of Dina Lane, of the death of Chaim Rindy, husband of Malka Rindy, Sheldon Dolberg, uncle of Jay Eisenberg, Garrett Talve Hill, son of Arava Talve, and Tom Hill. We remember the Yortsites, the anniversaries of the deaths of Georgia Gillespie, David Hunt, Excel Hunter, Jolan Klein, Sarah Lipset, Allison, Charles Nauman, Lurleen Pollinger, Robert Rubenstein, Mindy Strober, Leah Aloni, Sanford Arnold, Lorraine Friedman, Babette Kamens, Molly Kay, Julia Cooperberg, Bob Mayer, Jerome Paris, Jack Pishak, Leah Spencer, Maurice Baumgarten, Joel Friedman, Irving Namus, Jeannie Stacy Neal, Julius Goldstein, Sid Mock, Alvin White, Hyman Chavin, Eva Elliott, Mildred Goldberg, William Hyman, Jeanette Immergluck, Eva Quacher Elliott, Kate G. Levy, Patricia Mielmeyer, Lee Buxbaum, Roy Katz, Rose Betty Kelber, Rhea Levis, Sydney Michelson, Aaron Saltzman, Eugene Bass, Regina Beliak, Evelyn Bach, Richard Botwin, Alan Gershman, Maurice Spike Gingold, Eugene Klein, Morris Lentz, Daniel McNaughton, I. John Movich, and Ida Watsky. We add to those names, all of those that we remember from our own lives and communities, and we carry them in our hearts as we join in Kaddish Yatom, Mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitgadash Shemei Rabbah, v'yalma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayachon v'yomechon v'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael, v'agalau v'zman kariv v'imru amen.
Amen.
Yehei Shmei Rabbah mevarach v'olam olamei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal Shmei d'kudusha b'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tush b'chata v'nechemata da'amiram bi'alma v'imru amen.
Amen.
Yehei shlama rabba min shmaya v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen.
Amen.
Oseh shalom b'imromav hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen.
Amen.
Zichronam livracha. May their memories always be for a blessing.
So we're going to end a little bit differently this evening. You with the sad eyes, don't be discouraged. Oh, I realize it's hard to take courage in a world full of people. You can lose sight of it all just, and the darkness inside you makes you feel so small. But I see your true colors shining through. I see your true colors. That's why I love you. So don't be afraid to let them show your true colors. True colors are beautiful, like a rainbow. Show me a smile then, don't be unhappy. I can't remember when I first saw you laughing. If this world makes you crazy and you've taken all you can bear, call me up because you know I'll be there. And I'll see your true colors shining through. See your true colors, that's why I love you. So don't be afraid, oh, to let them show your true colors. Your true colors are beautiful, like a rainbow. I see your true colors shining through. See your true colors, and that's why I love you. So don't be afraid, oh, to let them show your true colors. Your true colors, your true colors are beautiful,
If you have a cup of juice or wine, you can grab it. So we're going to join in Kiddush.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho v'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu, zikaron lema'aseh v'reishit. Ki hu yom techila lemikraye kodesh, zecher letziat Mitzrayim. Ki vanu vacharta, ve'otanu kidashta, mikol ha'amim, v'shabbat kodshecha, ve'ava uvratzon hinchaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai Mekadesh HaShabbat. Chaim.
L'chaim. Little challah, if you've got.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom, everyone. We hope to see you all soon and have a wonderful
See you next
and peaceful
week
Shabbat.
soon.
Take care. Bye-bye.